Please join me in welcoming back to the stage the director of the film, Chris Thompson. And a guest as well.
Hello. Sorry.
I knew you were
People
somewhere.
Yeah, they were trying to talk to Pat out front. He said, go back in the theater. You can ask Pat anything you want, we promise.
So I haven't introduced you properly yet, but I thought maybe you wanted to do so. Look out for the screen.
Yeah, the screen. Well, my name is Chris Thompson. I was the director of Jeff, and Pat Kennedy, as you probably can recognize at this point, was one of the subjects. And we worked on this film for 4 years. We shot from probably mid to late 2008 until January or February of this year. And this is the first international screening, so this is incredible to see this many people here. Thank you so much for coming. This is awesome. I've had so much fun at this festival, and that's the sign that Pat wants to talk. So if anyone has any questions.
Did you have any contact with Jeffrey Dahmer's father? Did he have any interaction with the film? Did he have anything to say about it or his early life? Maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
He didn't, I mean, yeah, he probably know more than anyone about Jeffrey Dahmer. I guess he's his dad, but the film, I started from a place where I wasn't so much interested in why he did what he did or maybe what had happened to him as a child. I was more interested about, you know, being someone from Milwaukee and wanting to make a movie about this. I was more interested in sort of the effect and how that maybe resonated and changed other people's lives around him. So I didn't start the research with looking for family members and people that maybe knew about him or what caused him to do what he did. I started looking, you know, more as far as people that lived in Milwaukee that, you know, their lives were affected in ways that the media didn't tell the world about back in 1991. So you're absolutely right. I'm sure he knows a lot more than this film could tell you about what was going on in his head, but for somehow that was never what interested me because I couldn't understand it, I couldn't relate to it. What I could sort of sympathize with and what I wanted to learn more about was the people that lived in Milwaukee that were around him and how their lives were changed.
I could speak a little bit to Lionel. I spoke to him, to Jeffrey's whole family extensively. He had a PhD in chemistry, and he was active in Jeffrey Dahmer's early dabbling with dead animals, cutting them open and cleaning the flesh off the bones. Actually started a little cemetery for his subjects. So his father kind of encouraged him in this activity of looking into animals and cutting up the flesh. I believe he kind of thought he was like a prodigy or something like that. Actually, when he was living with his grandmother in Milwaukee, she mentioned that he was throwing large garbage bags in the trash and mentioned to it his father, who came and actually found some bones in Grandma's garbage. And went and talked to Jeff, and he fooled his father by saying that he found another dead raccoon. Because he had taken the bones of the body and pulverized them with a sledgehammer, so they looked small. So his father, and actually his father wrote a book about this too, and missed out on, I think you mentioned it in some of the movie, he tried, I don't want to speak bad of the man, but I think he tried to make some money off it at the time.
I think, just to add to it, I think what I realized immediately, like within the first 3 or 4 months, was like, you could probably make 5 films about this. Like, the sensitivity of the racial issue in Milwaukee, the police department and the racial issue, homophobia in 1991 was a huge issue. Talking about, you know, there's 4 or 5 different films I realized you could make, feature documentaries, and back when I was, you know, much more excited about making 5 films about this topic. I thought I was going to make all 5. I think my next one's going to be an animation for 8-year-olds. Very colorful with rainbows and balloons. And Pat's going to do all the voices though. So
Right there.
I'd like to know if, Pat, you were traumatized at all by the association with Jeff.
Can you see the kink in me or what?
So Pat, were you traumatized at all by dealing with this case?
I'm more traumatized being up in front of all these people. No. Actually, during the case, during the 6 weeks that I spent talking to him, the department sent me to a psychiatrist or a psychologist once a week to, you know, see that my head was screwed on straight. I I don't know. Years later, I got a little weird about being in small spaces. It kind of came and went because I had spent that 6 weeks. We were always locked in an area, but no permanent kinks that I can tell. Yeah, but who knows, right? These things come on later on.
Can I tell one? I hope you don't get mad at me for telling this, but the place that we shot at was this incredible theater concert space in Milwaukee called Turner Hall. And it's on the 3rd floor. It's enormous. It's a big room like this. But to get up, you need an elevator to get up to the top. And so Pat showed up for the interview, and we had talked a few times at that point, but we weren't really good friends at that point yet. We're in the parking lot. He's kind of hesitant, and I'm like, Pat, if you're rethinking this, let me know. We don't have to push it or whatever. And he's like, well, no, I'm not rethinking it. I know you got your cameras and people up there, but is there another way to get upstairs that's not the elevator? And I was like, yeah, but really? And he was like, yeah, I just don't like small spaces anymore. And it clicked to me like, oh, all right, cool, yeah, we'll find another place. So we went to the front and asked the secretary, and she's like, the elevator works, just take the elevator. And we're like, no, you don't understand. What had happened was, in 1991, there was this guy, so I don't mean to throw you under the bus, but...
That's what I told them at Sutton Place too, but they still put me on the 18th floor. So I'm not walking up.
Right there.
How did the casting for Jeff go? The fictional casting?
Oh, the casting? Those are all the strange thing, is there anyone from Milwaukee in the house tonight? No one? Not a single person. It's not that far away. Does anyone in the house know where Milwaukee is? Literally every single actor you saw came from one of two places. One was they either owned or worked in the stores that we shot in, or they were other filmmakers that were like, yeah, I'll help you, man. I mean, I really don't want to, and I'm an awful actor, but you helped me set up that light that one time when I was doing that thing. So it's like, all those people are actually either filmmakers or work or own the stores that we shot in. So none of them are really actors, including Andrew Swanton, who plays Jeffrey Dahmer. He's a filmmaker. He's a really good filmmaker, and he made a music video on YouTube that someone in here may have seen or may not have seen called "What in the Butt" with Samwell. And so I was like, we're making a movie, and would you be interested in playing Jeffrey Dahmer? And he's like, no, I'm not an actor, and no, that sounds awful. I would never be in a movie with Jeffrey Dahmer. But I convinced him, it's actually, we want to talk about the people that are around him. And he's like, all right, yeah, I'll do it, but like, I need to have final cut, and I need to only, everything that we do, I want to have final say in. Like, I can't have, anything unsensitive or sensational going on. I was like, all right, and then it's like, so we shot for about 3 weeks, and then the second week, we came to pick him up, and it was like 5 a.m., and there's like 6 of us in a film crew. And we like walked up to his house, and his door was open at 6 a.m., which you don't leave your door open at 6 a.m. in Milwaukee, but his door was open at 6 a.m. and there was like rock music coming out of his house, and he doesn't listen to rock music. And I came in, and I was like, Andrew, what's going on, man? Are you ready to shoot? And he's like, yeah, like I've just been reading all the books that Dahmer read and listening to all the music that Dahmer listens to. And that's when I was like, oh my God. Totally fucked this guy's life up. But he swears that, he's okay with it. He also says he's never going to act again, but he's on the other side, the back side of the camera again, shooting and stuff. More questions for Pat. I swear he's better at answering questions than I am.
Oh, there's right there.
What happened with the apartment?
What happened with the apartment?
Great back question.
The building was tore down. It's still kind of an eyesore. They just put up a 6-foot chain link fence around it. If you ever saw the movie Carrie, where she goes to put the flowers and the handcuffs, it's all rubble there. It's kind of a strange, it's strange. They don't know what to do with it. They don't want to memorialize it. I had some people come by from the BBC that were doing a documentary, and they wanted to go down there and film it and see what it looks like. So it's kind of an eyesore. It's still just west of the Marquette University campus. The area is populated by about the same, but just in that lot, that 3-story.
How many units were in that?
It was a 3-story, 36-unit rectangular building.
He also knows the square footage of each unit.
It's in the report.
Okay, there's somebody right in the back waving back and forth. That's you.
I have actually 2 questions. First is there any tapings of the conversation that you had with Jeffrey Dahmer
Sorry, that's a really good question.
Yes, I would expect that. And the second question is, was there any investigation when, I guess we call prison justice happened to Jeffrey?
Okay, I only heard the first one.
I could do
If
the
you
second
can
one.
repeat. Okay, so the first one is, oh, it's gonna be so good.
It's gonna be awesome.
Were there any tapings of the conversations that Pat had with Jeffrey Dahmer?
And then was the reason that he was killed some sort of prison justice? But can I just reiterate that that first question is incredible, and I'm jealous I didn't think of that while interviewing him. That's nuts. The film would have been way better.
20 years ago, the Milwaukee Police Department Homicide Unit, we did not do any audio or any visual taping at all. So it was just me and him in a 9x5 or 9x12 room with a table and 2 chairs and no windows. That was it. So the only people who know what went on there is Jeffrey and I. But I wrote it all out. I mean, I was young and following all the rules at the time. So I know that later on, when he was in prison, he acquiesced to a Park Dietz, a psychologist, who made hours and hours of tapes of him. And I've seen them, but he's in this real monotone, rote, almost robotic questions. When I had him, I mean, he was like a regular human being. I saw him laugh and cry and go through all the different emotions, love and hate and fear. So to answer that, there was no audio, and thank God I wouldn't have been as successful a homicide detective if they would have been watching all the stuff I was doing for all those years.
And what about him dying in prison?
In prison, the young man who killed him was already there serving 2 life sentences for homicide. He was a member of the Black Gangster Disciples, and they told him at the time that he would be the king of the freaking prison if he would kill Jeffrey Dahmer and this other guy, Jesse Anderson, who also twisted around some hate crime type things that we figured out. I was on that case as well. So there was some prison justice, and I'll tell you, I came into work that morning that he was murdered. And the interesting thing about it, the very first murder that he committed in Bath, Ohio, he did with a barbell, and it was the same type of barbell that he was murdered with in the end, because he was murdered in the gymnasium part of the prison. The last thing is nobody went down for that, because I talked to the detective up at the prison that investigated it.
Don't spoil it. That's part 5 of my 5-part series. Where's everyone that worked in that prison at?
Okay, we only have time for maybe 2 more questions right there.
8 a.m. It's
When
coming
I
quick.
Googled the movie the other day, and I saw you had used this website to try and raise money for the Kickstarter.
Yeah, Kickstarter is great.
What I'm wondering is how much money were you able to raise through that website? It's new to me, but apparently lots of people know about it. And was there any hesitant? Like, do you think that maybe the topic, given what the movie's about, did you have a hard time trying to raise money to get it made?
So Kickstarter, it's a website you can use to have people help you fund your film. How much money did you make through Kickstarter? That was the first part, and then was there any hesitation on the part of people who donated money because of the subject matter? Did I get that right? I got that right.
First of all, if anyone doesn't know what Kickstarter is, it's a crowdsourcing sort of fundraising website where you can post something that says, here's what I'm trying to do, and this is how much money it's going to cost. Is there anyone out there, friends, family, or strangers that would like to donate or submit money to this goal or this project or whatever? And so I had been shooting for 3.5 years, and Kickstarter maybe came up in the 2.5 or 3rd year, and a few friends that I had worked with, or actors in this movie actually, had some amount of success raising money on other projects, and I hit a wall where, like, the amount of credit cards I was carrying in my wallet was like so thick I couldn't sit on it. I'd have to like pull my wallet out and put it into the front pocket because it was like so thick. So I was just out of money, and I had received a bunch of grants and funds from different foundations in Milwaukee, the Mary Noel Foundation, and I was at a limit where I knew I wasn't going to be able to finish the film unless I reached out, beyond my own dollars and pennies that I was able to raise, and Kickstarter was what helped me push sort of through the finishing process of getting all the music, the color correction, the sound design, all that stuff, leading up to Sundance, which was South by Southwest, which was in March of this year. So yeah, it's an awesome resource. Anyone in here that's struggling to finish a film, I would highly recommend it. Well, was it hard? That was the other part of the question. Yeah, it was super hard. The campaign lasted 40 days, and those 40 days, I don't think I slept for more than 3 or 4 hours a night because it was incredibly awkward to be raising money to finish a documentary in a city with as complicated of racial issues and political issues that happen every single day, from the privileged place that I come from, to be able to make documentaries about people that are oppressed and whose stories are never told. Like, it was very awkward and complicated. But I think what got me through it was knowing that the three people whose story I was telling, they couldn't walk away from it. And I was 3.5 years in, and I could walk away from it, but where would they be if I did? So that was it.
Okay, we're gonna try to do 2 more, so let's do them as quickly as possible right there.
As a filmmaker, for the recreations, did you draw strictly upon testimony? And as an officer, how did you deal with those that fetishize the murders?
So as a filmmaker, for the recreations, did you deal specifically with testimony? As a police officer, how did you deal with people who fetishize the murders? Yes.
No, for the when I started making this film, I guess it takes a little bit of a previous answer to start this, but this is my first feature film. I had shot a short fictional film or a short documentary that won the Milwaukee Film Festival where we're from. They gave me a bunch of film, and I was a video documentarian. I had no idea what to do with film, super 16mm film. There's another incredible filmmaker in Milwaukee named Frankie Latina, who's like a sensational grindhouse, makes really violent, bloody films. And he was sort of my mentor, not because of the films that he made, but because he had just finished his film called Modus Operandi. And I was asking him, what should I shoot? What should I shoot? And he goes, oh, shoot a grindhouse Dahmer film. And I was like, oh my God, that sounds awful. I'll never do that. And he kept bringing me tapes and articles and clips and movies. And I didn't want to do it, but what I realized was there's these little threads of sort of more personal, intricate stories that talked about the effects of citizens of Milwaukee that, you know, the huge international story in '99 or in '91 never covered. And so it pushed me to start doing that. But at the time I was only like 24, and I didn't have the courage to actually approach people that lived the case. So what we started doing, my favorite film at the time was Last Days. And I was like, yeah, I'm a really good filmmaker, so I'm just gonna like totally do what Gus Van Sant did and shoot the last week of Dahmer's life, and I'll call it Last Days or something, you know, it'd be really good. And it wasn't really good. It was like 2 hours long and no one wanted to watch it. And that was all the fictional scenes. That was it. Just him walking around, store to store to store to store. And we'd play it for all of our friends and family and filmmakers in Milwaukee, and we'd be in the front row and we'd be like loving it, and then we'd turn around and like everyone would be asleep, or would have like left or whatever. And so, you know, this is 2 years in, and so to answer your question about testimony, no, it was more like we had read his confession and we read all of these articles and books and stuff, and what we just tried to pick apart were like, oh, like he, you know, got eye exams somewhere. That would be weird. Imagine being his fucking eye doctor. That would be crazy. Oh, he used to catch this bus. Imagine having a family and riding the fucking bus next to this guy every day and you talk about the weather and then you see him in the fucking news. Like, we just took all those stories and we were like, let's just put 80 of those together and see what would happen. And what would happen is people fell asleep until we brought up. So just to be honest, like it was really an organic process of, there's a movie called American Movie from Milwaukee, and the editor of that, Barry Polterman, is like one of my mentors. And he's like, he's like, either stop doing this or find people that live this. You know what I mean? You have to legitimize this in some way. So we shot an interview with Jensen. It was incredible, made it better, it wasn't done. Shot an interview with Kennedy. It was ultra incredible, still wasn't done. The last one was with Pam, and when we shot the interview with Pam, like, leaving her house was like, I don't even know, it was like living a lucid dream hearing her story. It was the most incredible day of my whole life, probably, and it felt like it was done. And we edited for another 4 months and then premiered at South by Southwest.
And regarding the other question, it's kind of two-part. Number one, part of the investigation was we had to check out every one of his stories. So I talked to an incredible amount of men who were with Jeffrey Dahmer who are still alive. I mean, they're still walking around because he didn't kill everyone. He only killed the ones who he felt were the most beautiful, the ones he wanted to keep with him. The other thing is that at the time I did get calls from Oprah Winfrey and Geraldo Rivera, Inside Edition, who wanted to do more exploitive type things on this. And at the time we were under gag orders on the police department that if you talk to anybody outside, you know, you would be fired. And I still had 3 kids in Catholic school at the time, so
Yeah.
I needed my job. But since then, there have been other exploitive on the sex part where I've been approached, and I never got involved. I only got involved with Chris because, well, he let me look at some of the other movies he'd been involved in, and I knew it wasn't going to be an exploitive film, but maybe it would be more a thought-provoking film about community and how can something like this happen. And and it was 20 years later, so I think it was time for me to, and I had written out some things on a book about my 6 weeks with him, so I gave that to you to read before he did that, so he could get kind of idea where I was at. So the sexual titillation, it's always been kind of a thing there. Don't forget, he was diagnosed with 3 sexual paraphilias, fraudulism, you know, he was always masturbating all the time. I never met a guy who jacked off as much as this guy did. There's another high-class term called, but it basically means cannibalism and necrophilia. And that was the big fight in Wisconsin of whether or not he was sane or not, because in Wisconsin the tipping point for sanity is whether or not you understand what you're doing at the time is right or wrong. And it was obvious he went to great lengths to cover his crimes. So he knew what he was doing was wrong. So he was found to be sane, but of course anybody who did what he did had to be insane. So
I was thinking more people who have fetishized this case who would come to you as somebody attached to the case and want to become close to you because of your own attack of the case. Women who come up to the bar and say, hey, you're pretty hot.
I wish that would happen more often. In kind of a strange...
It's 1:30 a.m. and this theater is full, man.
In kind of a strange way at the time, I was 20 years younger at the time, but yeah, people who that I would see on a normal basis and had a professional relationship with, and you know, never anything more, all of a sudden it did seem like, yeah, it did happen sometimes like that, right? It was kind of creepy too. No, not really.
Okay, I hate having to do this because I wish
Let me
there
just
was
say one
something-
more thing.
Go.
So in South by Southwest, my sales agent, Josh Brown, after every Q&A, like when I'd walk out, I'd be like, Josh, how'd it go? And he'd go, why didn't you put all that shit that Pat said in the Q&A in the fucking film? Sorry to interrupt you for that.
No. I'm glad that's how we're gonna end it off.